back again for the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling, a special prediction show here for Extreme Rules. I'm your host, Sean Meyers, joined by Justin Lowery. And Justin, it is probably the most fun time of the month for us here on the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling, at least from my perspective. I know it's Sean Saputo's perspective, easily said for me. And unfortunately, he's not here, but he did send me his picks, so I will pass those along. You, however, my friend, are on the hot seat. It is the first time we've had you on to make your predictions for a show. So we'll see how you do. I will, of course, revisit these next week. I'll put a nice little graphic together showing all the picks and which ones were right, which ones were wrong. Dating back to when Sean and I did the WrestleMania predictions, then that was ugly. We were probably clicking at about 25% accuracy. Since then, though, it's been a little bit better. Before we get into the specific matches for Extreme Rules, any thoughts overall on the pay-per-view and maybe the fact that it seemingly does look to be a little bit more predictable with some of the outcomes?
To me, on paper, it's a bit of a boring pay-per-view, but I've gone on other pay-per-views thinking that, and then the matches deliver. So, I mean, I'm hoping to see good matches because on paper, it's a little boring.
Is there, does it feel like really they're saving the big build for SummerSlam and this is sort of just a filler pay-per-view? Because it's at the time of year where Money in the Bank's a big one now. That was last month. SummerSlam in August. July, it's, not necessarily easy to put a pay-per-view together that's either not repetitive from the previous month or not giving away some of the big matches for SummerSlam.
No, I agree. I mean, you can tell they're just bottom. And plus, I hate the name Extreme Rules because it's not very extreme, is it? I mean, with the pay-per-view by that name, there's not really extreme matches. I mean, these are matches we see all the time, any given Raw, SmackDown, or pay-per-view.
Well, I will say when they first started Extreme Rules years ago, it seemed like back then it was pretty extreme. I mean, as far as what this era of WWE is, at least, but it's changed, and now. Talking to Elias over many, many years, he's said so many good things and logical things in terms of wrestling. But I remember years ago, long before he was on the main roster, he said, why do you have a pay-per-view dictate what the matches should be? Shouldn't the feud dictate the type of gimmick match? So just because the pay-per-view is named Extreme Rules, you're sort of either forcing unnecessary stipulations and gimmicks into these matches, or you're just ignoring them altogether. I would much rather have just a generically named pay-per-view, and then if you can mix in some stipulations and some gimmick matches, do it, but don't try to force it, which is what seemingly in this past week they've really forced a lot in terms of the stipulations that they've added to these matches without much rhyme or reason.
No, I agree. I mean, bring back Bash at the Beach. I mean, that was a big WCW name.
Yes.
Want to go to ECW? Bring Heat Wave. I mean, anything. Any generic name would work.
All right, so let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into our predictions. And we're going to go from the most significant matches and work our way down, if you will. And while this one is technically the most significant, Justin and I alluded to it on the combination of the Raw recap and SmackDown summary. The WWE title match between AJ Styles and Rusev doesn't necessarily feel like the biggest match on the show, but it is the one for the world title, so we'll talk about it first. Could end up ultimately being the final match of the night. I would not put money on it. However, this one looks pretty cut and dry. AJ Styles almost certainly has to retain here. I see really no chance for Rusev winning unless he gets a shocking victory and then drops the title a couple of days later. But I don't think that's in the cards. Looks like AJ will maintain his championship run into SummerSlam, where probably much bigger and better things await in terms of potentially Samoa Joe or another marquee opponent. Rusev gets his chance. That's a good thing, but he's probably not the most credible challenger that AJ Styles has faced. I hope that the match itself is pretty good and that Rusev, if nothing else, stays near the main event picture as a result of it, though.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know I'm going with AJ Styles. I think, in the previous, recap of SmackDown Raw, I kind of gave my reasons, why I believe that. And just to add a different layer to that, AJ AJ Styles, on the side anyway, is going to be on the cover of the new WWE game. I expect him to hold that title through the release, which I think they're releasing that in October. So I fully expect him to hold the title through the release, because that just makes, I guess, business sense, especially with Vince the way he likes to do things. I don't see AJ dropping it even, going forward until at least Survivor Series.
This might sound crazy, Justin, and part of me says this shouldn't really be a main concern, but is there a little bit of pressure on AJ Styles to have a good match here? Because you look back at what he's done over the last 3 or 4 months with Nakamura, it's been well below expectations. To that point, I think Styles had always delivered, and while his match at the last pay-per-view Money in the Bank did deliver, overall, I don't think you can argue that he's the top in-ring guy in the company right now. Seth Rollins has passed him up. Do you see maybe a little bit of pressure or something for him to prove in this match?
Honestly, I don't. Only for the fact that he was having great matches through his feud with Nakamura. And I think most people point the finger at him, not AJ Styles. And I don't think a lot of people are expecting a classic here with Rusev. Rusev is, in the ring, but he's not going to give you that 5-star matchup. Now, this was like him and Joe, that's a different story. But I think for this match, at Extreme Rules, where there's not really a lot of hype going into it, and I'm assuming they're not going to be the main event either. I think, anything above 3 stars is going to be a plus, and other than that, I think he'll be all right.
Just to fill the gaps here, Sean Saputo, his pick, AJ Styles as well, so we are unanimous in selecting the Phenomenal One to retain his title. Next match we want to jump into, it is not for a title, but it is probably the match that had the most build leading up to Extreme Rules, and it's over on Monday Night Raw. It is Bobby Lashley against Roman Reigns. This one is an intriguing matchup, and the reaction, as you mentioned, Justin, is going to be very interesting. Roman Reigns is not a guy that typically gets a great face reaction. We've seen that in Pittsburgh in the past. But really, I think this is a significant match because, for all intents and purposes, it determines the number 1 contender for Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. I don't know if that's technically the stipulation. I know they alluded to it weeks ago, but ultimately you have to feel like whoever wins this one will be challenging for the Universal title, hopefully, at SummerSlam. So what's your feel on this match, and who's your pick?
And I mean, do we really have to give too much of a reason here? I mean, he's the man, right? He's the big dog. It would make pretty much no sense actually to go over unless they are kind of over the Roman Reigns experiment, and I don't think they are. I expect a big physical match, basically the same type of matchups you've seen between Roman and Lesnar, because Lashley can kind of simulate that same style. Hard hitting, I'm going to see a lot of spears, a lot of Superman punches, and eventually, Roman's going to go over.
You know what? It's hard to argue with that. I think Bobby Lashley certainly would benefit greatly from a victory. He's newer to the picture. This is his first opportunity since returning to really have a big-time match after he had what I would consider a mid-card feud with Sami Zayn, and prior to that, just kind of here and there with some tag team stuff. But that being said, I can't pick against Roman Reigns. It seems like WWE, or especially Vince McMahon, has wanted the final chapter in the Roman Reigns-Brock Lesnar feud at SummerSlam. I think that will happen, and for that to happen, I think that Roman Reigns needs to win this match. So I'm going with Roman Reigns, and I hope it's a good match. I think that there's certainly the potential to have a pretty good match. It would do wonders for Roman, because there's rightfully some criticism that he hasn't really been at his best recently. You go back to his more recent pay-per-view matches. Lesnar, not a great one at WrestleMania. I thought it was kind of a bad match. His match against Jinder, it's tough with some of these situations he's working. Now he doesn't have that excuse because Bobby Lashley is a guy that can get it done. So I think it's big for Roman. And really, this is a match that even if he loses, Lashley could continue to elevate himself near the main event picture. So opportunity for both guys. I'm going with Roman Reigns. You're going with Roman Reigns. Sean Saputo, he agrees with us. His pick also is Roman Reigns for this match. Now let's shift to the match that I am anticipating more than any other one on Sunday night in Pittsburgh, which, by the way, I don't know if I noted, I will be there in attendance. Justin will be watching from home. It is the Intercontinental title match, Dolph Ziggler, the champion, against Seth Rollins, the challenger. And a couple weeks ago, I don't think many people were expecting this would be a pay-per-view match. It kind of came out of nowhere when Dolph won the title from Seth Rollins in the IC Open Challenge. They followed it up with an unbelievable main event rematch on Monday Night Raw that ultimately ended with a Drew McIntyre run-in. And now we get, once again, hopefully a rematch, this time with a clear and decisive winner. I am going with Dolph Ziggler to retain this title, but more than anything else, Justin, I am looking forward to this because I think with 30-minute Iron Man stipulation, this one not only should, but I would say is highly likely to steal the show. I don't think there's really any other match that you can look at and say that match I think will be better than Ziggler and Rollins. It has the ability to be that good.
No, I agree. I expect this to be the match of the night. I do want to add, I don't like Iron Man matches only because it's going to go a half hour. I would rather them go a half hour and not know it because it makes the near falls that much more intense. And you're not going to get that in an Iron Man match. But like you, I am going with Ziggler. I guess it just makes sense. It doesn't make sense to give the title back to Seth right now. I need it. I thought he was going to, end up in the WWE title, Universal title scene there on Raw. I don't know where he's going to go after this feud, but I think they're going to eventually build up between Drew McIntyre and Ziggler, and maybe they'll have a feud over that title. But for now, I do see Ziggler going over.
I saw someone tweet the other day about realistically there should only be one fall in this match. If you go off of their 28-plus minute match on Raw, yes, that makes sense. How does this need to be booked? Because to me, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think maybe 3 falls should be the max. The way I look at it, however, you cannot have a pinfall or a submission or a countout within the first 12 to 15 minutes because then it just loses all reality. Because if these two are having a match at any pay-per-view, just a single fall match, it's going to go at least 12 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. For there to be a fall in the first 5, 6, 7 minutes, it's not believable to me. So while I think there could maybe be 3 total falls in this one, and truthfully there might be 5 or 6 the way that this actually plays out, but the way I look at it, it's fine as long as they come in the second half of this match.
The only thing that would make sense if something happened early, which this kind of makes logic, but neither of them are submission specialists. If somebody gets you in a submission hold 2 minutes in, wouldn't it be smart to tap right away instead of sitting in it for 3 minutes trying to fight out of it, causing damage? If you're already in a 30-minute match, the smart play would actually be to tap and then get it back, and they can kind of use that as psychology of the match. Other than that,
I like that.
Somebody gets picked.
Right. Well, the other thing that the other thing we've seen in the past is intentionally getting disqualified in the process of really beating down your opponent. Because, you give up a fall, but if you inflict enough damage with a chair or something, you theoretically could not only get that fall back, but then some. So in terms of strategy, this match could be very interesting. However, typically the way that these are booked, you're going to get a fall within the first 6, 7, 8 minutes. You're going to get another one. You end up having probably, if I were to predict what they actually will do, probably 5 falls in 30 minutes, which isn't realistic if you look at the 28-plus minute match that they just had on Monday Night Raw without a finish. It ended in DQ in the 28-plus minute mark.
Oh, I agree. I really don't like Iron Man matches. The only one I really like is Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels.
One total fall in like an hour and 3 minutes.
Right. But that it keeps you on the edge of your seat. I hate seeing someone might go up 2-0. Well, then the next 2 are probably going to the other person. Rarely. I can't even remember in the past history anyone's ever won an Iron Man match with more than 2 falls up. Someone won 3-1. Like, I really don't remember that. It was, a couple months ago, I forget who it was, 2 out of 3 falls, somebody actually won 2 straight falls.
Yeah, that was with the bar. The bar was involved in that, I believe. Maybe they...
Yeah, like, that was surprising because everyone always expects those matches to go 3 falls. Could they do something different where somebody, wins 2-0? Maybe, but I doubt they're going to do that.
It's also probably going to come down to, if Ziggler does win, that he's up by 1 fall and Rollins hits a move and gets a 2 count and then time expires or something. They do that all the time, and they've done it in Pittsburgh before between Charlotte and Sasha Banks. So it's kind of the time-tested formula. What you said, it's going to be down to 1 total decision that separates the winner from the loser. However it unfolds, I think it's going to be great. I hope that it's as good, if not better, than their match on Raw, which I think to this point is the match of the year. Let's talk about another title, another mid-card title, if you will, that's on the line. That's on SmackDown. It's the U.S. title between champion Jeff Hardy and the challenger Shinsuke Nakamura. Really a good opportunity for Nakamura after losing the feud with AJ Styles, not capturing the WWE Championship. A quick turnaround, he gets another title shot. And this one, truthfully, I think is a little bit more up his alley because he just did not, in my opinion, seem like he was ready to be a heavyweight champion. But is he ready to be a U.S. champion? Yes, I think he probably is. But on the other side of that token, Justin, Jeff Hardy has been pretty good with the new look. People were behind him since he went over to SmackDown. It's been a nice little resurgence for him as well. So makes it a little bit difficult to try to see what the company's ultimately going to do with this one. What's your take on this match?
I'm going with Nakamura to finally get over a hump and win a title here on the main roster. My reasons being is he really needs it. Jeff can afford to lose a title. If he loses another, big match, he might as well go back to Japan because, he's about done. He's lost so much here recently. I don't think there can really take another loss. Another reason is, by all reports, Jeff is kind of banged up. This might be a good time to get a title off of him, let him rest up a little bit. And, I think we all kind of see in the past, Vince loves putting the U.S. title on 4, heels. And I wouldn't it make sense to give the Japanese guy the U.S. title? That's just something like Vince do.
Yeah, that's a good point, and for those reasons, I agree with you, Justin. Now, my pick is Nakamura, not because of the lingering Jeff Hardy injuries, because truthfully, the way that this company works, whether he's champion or not, they could give him some time off. We see that with Monday Night Raw with Brock Lesnar, the Universal Champion, the biggest title in the company, theoretically never defended, and no explanation given. There's no 30-day rule anymore. But I think your point about Nakamura not being able to take another significant pay-per-view loss is the bigger factor here. He needs to get this victory. Jeff Hardy probably wouldn't suffer too much from it because I don't think they're ready to push Jeff Hardy up to the main event level. But I think Nakamura wins the title. He gets his first main roster championship. And you hope in the process maybe he finds that rhythm that he was struggling to find for the majority of his time so far on SmackDown. I will say, however, despite you and I thinking it is Nakamura, Sean Saputo believes that it's Jeff Hardy who will retain. And it's interesting because he was the one just really imploring the company to go with Nakamura as a world champion as recently as a month ago. That didn't happen. Now he's not even banking on Nakamura winning the U.S. title. So a little bit split on that one. You and I going with Nakamura, Sean Saputo picking Jeff Hardy. Let's transition to the next title match. It is for the Women's Championship on Monday Night Raw. Yes, we've seen this one before. It is Nia Jax, the challenger, against Alexa Bliss, the champion. If it sounds familiar, that was your WrestleMania Raw Women's Championship match as well. But there's a little bit different of a dynamic, this time in the form of Ronda Rousey. She is sitting front row for this matchup. We'll see how she factors in. I would assume she will factor in, certainly, in some shape or form. But I believe that Alexa Bliss, the champion after cashing in at Money in the Bank, will retain her title. She will continue to be the champion up until potentially she faces the aforementioned Ronda Rousey for the title. I don't think you have Alexa cash in with the Money in the Bank, win it that night just to have her lose it a month later. I think it's pretty clear here that she's going to hang on to the title. And then the interesting thing is, where does she go from here? Where does Ronda Rousey go from here? But that's all in the future. Right now, I see Alexa Bliss keeping that title.
I agree. Once again, me and you are on the same page. I'm going with Alexa Bliss. Only because that's what makes sense. She's the heel. You know, if Ronda's going to chase for the title, it's going to be with Bliss. I don't think they would have Nia Jax win, then turn heel again. I mean, maybe they could. I mean, we've seen her turn how many times in the last 2 months. I just don't think they're going to do that again. Alexa's one of those heel champions that you always, finds a way to win without cheating. She, somehow, some way. Ronda's going to factor in some way, somehow, at the end of the match. Maybe it's going to be, by accident that she, means to hit Bliss or something, ends up hitting Jax, and that's how,
I think that's a good pick, something like that.
Something like that's going to happen, but Alexa's going to walk out as champion.
Real quick on this, does it immediately go to Ronda chasing Alexa Bliss after this? Is that as early as SummerSlam? Do we see that?
I think it depends on the finish of the match. If she accidentally hits Jax, I could see them having a rematch, at SummerSlam. And maybe that makes sense, so it keeps Ronda still away from the title a little bit longer.
But then you have a tough draw trying to find Alexa an opponent for SummerSlam by that token. Ember Moon? Ember Moon would be really the only possible option.
Why not? At least it's fresh. I mean, I wouldn't expect her to win, but why not get a little bit of a spotlight? Why not? I mean, at this point, I would foresee that and keep Ronda away just a little bit longer, from the title. And plus, I think Ronda, she's very impressive in the ring, but I'm sure she can use a couple more matches, a couple more months of training before she finally gets that title run.
Sean Saputo agrees. It is Alexa Bliss across the board. We're all going with 5 Feet of Fury to keep her title. That's the Raw Women's Championship. On SmackDown, it is seemingly a mismatch, much like Nia, you figure on paper has to win. Well, on paper, Asuka is going to dominate Carmella. Do you think in reality that is what's going to happen here?
In the match, Asuka's probably going to get the majority of the offense. But in the end, I see Carmella, sadly. Not that I absolutely hate Carmella, but it's just a shame what they're doing to Asuka. Everything special about her is gone. James Ellsworth is going to factor in. It's honestly, I expect it to be a crappy match. Sadly to say, that to me that's a bathroom break match. That's how far Asuka's fallen on the card. That this match to me is when you get up and you go grab a beer.
I had the graphic up there with James Ellsworth in it. He is going to be hanging above the ring in a shark cage, which I don't think we had seen for years and years and maybe even decades. But now they've done it like 3 or 4 times in the past 2 years between NXT and the main roster. So it's not entertaining. Some people are going to have a chuckle at Ellsworth. He's going to be terrified to go up there. We know that. But he's probably going to drop something down. It's going to create enough of a distraction that Carmella wins. And it's just, I don't know where you go from there, because Asuka's done. Maybe you get a challenger like Becky Lynch, great for her, but then I don't see a way that Asuka can ever recover from losing this feud. I will say, at this point, even if Asuka does win, she's still damaged goods, in my opinion, after what's happened to her recently. So I think they're just going to go full on with the Carmella Championship run, and she will retain. However, while you and I agree that it will be the Queen of Staten Island, Sean Saputo is going with Asuka. And I hope we're wrong in this case, Justin. I hope that Sean is right, but I don't see that happening. I really, really believe that with the decision last month to have Carmella retain the title and to bring Ellsworth back, that they're just going to go forward with that. I don't see a different outcome this time, because if Asuka does win the championship, she still doesn't have that aura about her. So what's the point?
I agree. As soon as James L came back last month. I think that shows you, at least for the next couple months, they're rolling with Carmella as their champion. And maybe it'll take Charlotte coming back here in the next couple of weeks, to dethrone her. Who else? Becky Lynch, maybe, but I think we have Carmella for the foreseeable future.
And it's sort of ironic. I'm a huge Alexa Bliss fan. I'm okay with Carmella. But if you look at the two women as champions right now, if you were ranking them for their in-ring ability, maybe somewhere around 6 through 8 in terms of ranking them amongst the entire women's roster. I mean, they're nowhere near the top. We can agree with that, especially Carmella. So they're going more with the personality, the character, and the mic skills more than anything else right now for the women's championships.
I'm okay with that. For me, Bliss is the best character and best on the mic. Carmella, she's grown as a character on the mic. She has improved in the ring, but Bliss is better than Carmella. Carmella's maybe average, but she's very good. She makes people care. She gets people invested, good or bad. People love to boo her, and she's doing her job. But for entertaining matches, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Last month, I believe, that neither tag team championship was defended at Money in the Bank. Tag team prominence has gone by the wayside in recent months. It looks like they're making a concerted effort to try to bring it back. A little bit hot and cold, as always, with the tag team division, but both Raw and SmackDown's tag team championships will be on the line at this pay-per-view. And with SmackDown, it seems like a pretty big match because you have the Bludgeon Brothers, the champions. Yeah, they're decent. I like those guys. They don't have, a big-time feel about them yet, but their opponents certainly do because they're going against the returning Daniel Bryan and Kane back together once again. Yeah, it's kind of bogus that they immediately got that championship match, but that's the way it's worked out. So we will see Daniel Bryan and Kane challenge for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. I think that this is a tough one to call. And I'm going to go and say that Daniel Bryan and Kane actually win the championships. And I don't know that it's going to be a long run. I would actually expect it to not be one for them. I think maybe a month at most. But I think that we could see them capture the championship gold their first time back. I am going with Daniel Bryan and Kane to wrestle the tag team titles away from the Bludgeon Brothers.
Well, finally, me and you disagree. I am going with the Bludgeon Brothers on this one. A couple of reasons. Well, one, on a personal level, I just don't want to see Team Hell No win the titles. To me, that makes no sense. But the main reason is I see how The Miz costing them the match, which then finally sets up Daniel Bryan and The Miz SummerSlam. Because you still get there with them winning the titles, yes. But I don't. It makes no sense. Why would you do that to the Bludgeon Brothers? Let them continue their looking strong. Have the Miz cost them the match, and then it sets up perfect feud for SummerSlam. That's the way I would go, and hopefully that the WWE goes.
You make good points, Justin. And with that being said, I'm second guessing my pick. However, keep this in mind: we have already pretty much all agreed AJ Styles will retain his championship. We believe Dolph Ziggler will retain his championship. We were split with Nakamura. You and I think that he could capture a title. Sean Saputo thinks it'll stay with Jeff Hardy, but we all anticipate that Alexa Bliss keeps her title, and two of the three of us believe Carmella keeps her title. I think that we're going to see one, if not two, title changes. So I think this is more of a likely candidate than some of the other matches to see the title change chance. Again, I think it is more of a short-term thing. It is them winning the titles, maybe the culmination of this best of Daniel Bryan that you alluded to in past weeks. And then they maybe drop it, on TV. But that's why I'm going with it. Sean Saputo agrees with you, however. He picks the Bludgeon Brothers. So I'm in the minority thinking that we will have new SmackDown Tag Team Champs. However, we'll have to wait and see what happens between Daniel Bryan and Kane and the Bludgeon Brothers. The other Tag Team Championship match that takes place is between the Raw champions Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, the Deleter of Worlds, as they've become known, against the B Team, Curtis Axel, Bo Dallas. Not a match that this one's not a great match in terms of the overall star presence. The B Team is, castaways that are now finding a nice little niche as a comedy routine, and they've done a good job with the promos. But I'm having a hard time believing that this is going to be anything other than, maybe a 7-minute comedy-filled type of match.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about this match because it's not much of a match. Just to go back to your last point you said about the titles changing hands, I wouldn't be surprised on this pay-per-view if none of the titles change hands. I would not be shocked by that. I just wanted to say that. For whatever reason, I just don't feel there's really going to be too much of that going on. But to get back to this match, it's the B Team. I mean, their comedy act, again, they're kind of filler until something, I guess, more on for SummerSlam. I expect maybe a 5-minute match. The B Team might one comedy spot, and it's going to be over pretty quickly. And if the card's running long, I think this is the match that gets cut to shortest by far.
And your pick for this match, Justin?
Oh, well, yeah, Matt Hardy and, Bray Wyatt. Slam dunk.
I agree with you. I believe that they will retain the titles. I don't know where they go from there. It could be the Revival. Probably will be the Revival. Could be the Authors of Pain, who are now getting a little bit of a push on Raw. Or it could be another kind of ragtag team thrown together. But I believe that they will hang on to the titles, and it's probably, unfortunately, going to be the last prominent spot that the B Team has for the foreseeable future. They could go right back to being left off of TV more times than not.
I can't see them being in summer tag match with like a four tag teams. You know how
right.
Big pay-per-views they
want to get everyone in there.
I can see all those tag teams you just mentioned in a tag team match.
It is, once again, unanimous across the board. Sean Saputo going with the Deleter of Worlds, Matt Hardy, and Bray Wyatt to retain the championship. Let's move back to the singles ranks with some matches that don't have titles on the line, but I think have some pretty unique storyline aspects to them and some star power as well. We'll start on Monday Night Raw with Mr. Money in the Bank, Braun Strowman, going against Kevin Owens. This has been building for a while. Kevin Owens has sort of formulated plans against Braun Strowman that never really came to fruition. Strowman has tormented Kevin Owens for the last several weeks on TV as a result. These guys have done a good job making the most of this storyline. Yeah, there was, the typical potty humor with the skit a couple weeks ago with Braun Strowman flipping over the porta potty. That being said, these guys are both stars in my estimation. Braun Strowman, one of the fastest rising guys in the entire company. Kevin Owens always delivers both in the ring and with his character. He makes things interesting. So I like this matchup. I don't think it will be very competitive, however. I see Braun Strowman winning this one, and I don't think he's going to really break too much of a sweat in doing so. Much like what we saw with Bobby Lashley just dismantling Sami Zayn, maybe not to that same degree, but this one, Braun Strowman pretty easily victorious against KO.
I'm going with Braun too. I think it's probably going to go maybe 10, 15 minutes, but I don't expect much, offense from Kevin. Braun's pretty much going to destroy him. I think there's going to be a little bit of comedy involved. And, I mean, that's that. Braun's going to be Braun. He's probably going to do something pretty – there's going to be a spot there that really, shows his strength. Whether he throws him through the cell or, through the mat. There's going to be something that, that makes the crowd go, oh, they're going to try to have that big spot moment there.
Yeah, they are within a cell. That's because Kevin Owens has tried running away for weeks. So that's part of the Extreme Rules. And just to recap on that, the other matches we mentioned, James Ellsworth in a shark cage above the ring, and Alexa Bliss and Nia Jax is a Extreme Rules, which means pretty much anything goes. Am I missing any other stipulations for these matches? We mentioned obviously the Iron Man. We talked at length about that with Dolph and
we
Seth.
talked about that. Yeah. Which is that really extreme?
No, it's not.
I wouldn't call that extreme.
It's a nice little gimmick to it, but it's not extreme.
Right, yeah.
Um, Nonetheless, yeah, this one's Braun Strowman. You say that, I say that, Sean Saputo says that, so we all agree the monster among men wins this match, and maybe, just maybe, gets an opportunity at SummerSlam for the Universal title. We'll see how that plays out. Keep in mind, though, he does have the Money in the Bank briefcase and can cash it in at any time if he ever sees Brock Lesnar again. The other match, singles-wise, on Monday Night Raw is between Constable Corbin and Finn Balor. A match that doesn't have a lot of implications in terms of significance within the Monday Night Raw pecking order, because these guys right now, they're a little bit above mid-card, I would say. No titles on the line, but it is a good way to kind of feature Baron Corbin in his new role, because they have given him certainly a push, and he's going to have a pretty nice match here against Finn Balor. So what do you expect from this one, Justin?
Here's a match that's probably going to get, I'm going to say, 8 to 9 minutes maybe. This one feels, the storyline, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with both wrestlers. I think Finn is going to go over. But for me, this was the toughest match to call, actually, who was going to win. Because I could see them want to continue in the feud maybe. And, Corbin winning the match, doing, cheating or something. But I think overall Finn's going to go over. I mean, Finn needs to go over. I mean, Corbin doesn't need to go over with his character and his job right now. The whole storyline is getting him over. Finn, though, he's been hot and cold since coming back from the injury, and losing to Baron Corbin isn't going to help him out at all. So I really think he needs the win, and I think that's why he's going to pick it up.
I initially wanted to predict Baron Corbin to win this one, but for some reason I just said, clearly Finn is the better of the two. He's the more, over with the crowd. And he's the guy that maybe they could build something towards SummerSlam with him. I don't think that Baron Corbin, Constable or not, is going to be in a big-time match at SummerSlam, but I could see Finn Balor maybe working his way into one. And for that reason, maybe this feud does continue, but I think Finn Balor is the pick. And I don't have a great explanation behind it. I think you articulated it pretty well by saying this storyline itself and the new role is getting Baron Corbin over. But I just have a feeling that Finn Balor wins this one, and Sean Saputo agrees. We are all on the same page that Finn wins this matchup, and he's a guy that needs it. I mean, people thought maybe he'd be challenging Brock Lesnar for the Universal title. Probably will never happen at this point. But if you could get him a nice big-time SummerSlam match, I don't know who it might be against, but he's a guy that I think you could put up on a marquee of a pay-per-view, and it kind of moves the needle a little bit, especially if he's the demon Finn Balor at SummerSlam. One more match to discuss, and it is not going to be on the main card of Extreme Rules. It'll take place on the pre-show, which, by the way, if you're tuning in, the main show starts at 7. That means the pre-show starts at 6 o'clock. So the 6-man tag that we alluded to on SmackDown between the New Day and Sanity will take place before the show officially goes on the air. And speaking of stipulations, Justin, this is one that has a pretty interesting stipulation, a fun one for most people. It is a tables match. So the New Day and Sanity, 3-on-3 in a tables match. And I'll have to wait and see if it's just the first table broken ends the match, or if you have to put all 3 members of a team through a table. I don't know. Nonetheless, I think this could be a good match. It's an opportunity for Sanity to show what they bring to the table, pun intended. And conversely, the New Day has been so good. I picked them as the tag team of the year because really all 3 of them have done a great job here in 2018. I'm looking forward to this match, not because I'm a big Sanity fan or because the match really means a lot. I just think that these 6 guys are going to have plenty of motivation to go out there and put on a good show. The New Day always does, and Sanity for their first pay-per-view match, I think, will be up to the task. So I see this one being pretty good, but I think it is the newcomer Sanity who ultimately get the W in this tables match.
I agree with you. I think Sanity will win, and one of the main reasons is because of stipulation. we've seen people go over in table matches that maybe normally wouldn't go over a certain somebody. I believe Sheamus won a championship
against
Cena,
John
right,
Cena
in a table match. Right, and that's a way to lose the match, but not really lose. Like, it could be a fluke, it could be something, and then and then all Sanity will win, and then it will carry over to SummerSlam. It's going to be, I think, a fun, entertaining match. It's a good match to get the crowd hyped and ready to go. But in the end, it's going to be some type of fluke, where one of the New Day members go through the table.
And Sean Saputo agrees as well. He's on board with Sanity getting, I believe we mentioned this on the SmackDown summary, this would actually, I believe, be their first victory on the main roster. That's
I think so.
Yeah, that's sort of a unique way to potentially get your first W,
Yeah.
but it could help them. There's no doubt. I mean, they're trying to build Sanity. It's maybe come at the expense of the Bar and the Usos, who really haven't been factored into the SmackDown tag team division much recently, but you get this new trio over and maybe joined for a quartet pretty soon by Nikki Cross. But opportunity for Sanity before the show goes officially on the air to get the W. We all agree with that. Let's take a look at the predictions graphic here, just run down things quickly. Again, starting at the top, we all agree AJ Styles defeats Rusev to retain the WWE Championship on SmackDown. We also are all in agreement that Roman Reigns defeats Bobby Lashley, in all likelihood becomes the number one contender for the Universal title going forward. Dolph Ziggler is the pick amongst myself, Justin, and Sean Saputo to retain the IC title on Raw. Then the first time that we disagree with the U.S. Championship match, Justin and I think it's Shinsuke Nakamura, who claims gold for the first time. Sean Saputo going with Jeff Hardy to retain the title. We all think Alexa Bliss, however, will retain the Raw Women's title, while on SmackDown, Justin and I agree that Carmella will hang on to the championship. Sean Saputo expects to see new gold winner in the form of Asuka. Justin and Sean agree that the Bludgeon Brothers will keep their SmackDown Tag Team Championships, while I think the reunited Daniel Bryan and Kane will wrestle gold away from the Bludgeon Brothers. However, we all believe that Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, the Leader of Worlds, will hang on to the tag team titles, fending off the B Team on Raw. And then Braun Strowman, Finn Balor, and Sanity, all unanimous picks as well. It looks like, for the most part, Justin, we all pretty much agree. You and I just had one match difference. Sean Saputo was a different pick on a few matches, but generally it seems like, at least going in, pretty predictable outcomes for the majority of this card. Is that a bad thing?
Yes. I think so. If you can sit down the whole card and if we get this card pretty much right, what does that say? Nothing's really unpredictable, and if something's not unpredictable, then it becomes very boring and mundane.
I know you and I have both already highlighted what we think the match of the night will be, but is there anything that you either desperately want to see happen or are hoping will not happen at this show? Anything you're strongly rooting against?
I desperately want to see Asuka win, just for reasons we talked about earlier. I don't think it's going to happen, but that is what I desperately hope happens.
I agree with you on that one. That would be the one thing that I want to see. That was my pick last month, however, and it didn't happen. So, I'm not banking on that happening. The one thing that I want to see is just 4 or 5 matches that, I know I'm asking a lot here, 4 or 5 matches that at least live up to the billing, if not exceed it. I think Seth and Dolph will do that. I think AJ and Rusev could have a good match. I'm hoping that Jeff Hardy and Nakamura have a good match. I don't know that they will or not. Nakamura has been very hot or cold recently. I also hope Roman and Lashley have a pretty solid matchup. There's not a lot of matches when you look at this card that are destined to be poor matches on paper. I think the Raw Tag Team Championship match would fall under that. I think maybe the 2 Women's Championship matches, you could argue, aren't going to be just great in-ring exhibitions. But other than that, I think pretty much every match on the card could be pretty good. And I hope that they're at least, if nothing else, pretty good to very good to great. And I think that if you get that, then you start building some momentum and some interest heading into the second biggest pay-per-view of the year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do expect the matches to, definitely deliver. I think they're all professionals. They want to deliver. Storyline-wise, hopefully we get a surprise or two. They are, this is the last thing. Hopefully it starts building, getting some hype towards
Dean Ambrose, Samoa Joe. Do you see?
Dean Ambrose, from all reports, we're probably looking in September, unless they're wrong. I don't think he's healthy. Joe's a strong possibility because, clearly he's around. He needs something to do. Maybe at the last minute they do switch something up because the ratings on Raw were so bad that over the week they change up maybe some booking to, get people wanting to tune in this Monday coming off, Extreme Rules. We'll find out here shortly.
Last question. Do we get a performance in his hometown by Elias?
I think we get some type of song, him ripping the city, and then somebody coming out and basically, beating up, getting the best of Elias. And then Elias walking away with his tail between his legs and the crowd loving every second of it.
As long as Elias is on, I'll be happy. I'll say that much. Special thanks to co-host Justin Lowery taking time out of his Wednesday night to talk WWE, both with the Raw recap and the SmackDown summary. You can check that out on our YouTube channel, as well as this episode here of Trending Topics, in which we gave our predictions for WWE Extreme Rules. That's going to do it. Look forward to seeing the show live on Sunday, and we'll be back next week to talk about the fallout from the show, as well as our typical Raw and SmackDown talk. But that's going to put a wrap on this edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. For my co-host Justin Lowery, this is Sean Meyers signing off. Reminder to check back in next week for another episode of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling.